Hey everybody, Jeff Colson, Junior Hockey Advisor Live. It's Wednesday night. It's time to talk some hockey. Let me get Bloomer on here. I'm sure he's laughing with me fumbling all over the place tonight. What's up, Bloom?
Hello, Jeff. How we doing?
Mike Bloom in the Chicago area. I'm doing fine. It was hectic though. I've literally been working on this broadcast since 11 o'clock this morning, and got a lot of fantastic things done. We're going to have a great broadcast live stream tonight. We've got a special guest coming on a little bit later via an interview I just got done recording a little bit ago. And if all goes well, we'll have Ed Polumbo from Elite Prospects on. Ed's going to be talking about the premium service. He's going to be talking about the verified process on Elite Prospects that, he gave me some other thoughts on it that I hadn't thought about at all. And then he's going to be talking about their showcase and what's upcoming with their showcase. I'm really excited to hear all this again and actually be able to listen to it versus having to be worried about my notes and writing what he's saying and making sure the microphones are on, things like that. So sit back, relax. We're going to be talking hockey. Junior Hockey Advisor. What we do here is we're an unbiased resource for parents, players, coaches. We take different topics dealing with moving up the ladder from 15 to 16, 16 to 18, 18 to prep. Maybe you're in the high school range. You're going from high school to juniors, all leading into the juniors and juniors from college. We talk about all of it, and we try to help you learn the paths, learn the ins and outs, and make this whole process easier for you. Hopefully we're doing a good job of it. Hey, you can always jump on and give us a text and talk to us. All you have to do is write down in the chat area on this and send us a chat over. Tell us where you're at, where you're watching, ask a question, and we're here to help and try to make things as simple as possible for you. So were you at the rink tonight, Mike? I know you were at the rink all day today. You were on the ice a lot, but did you have a practice tonight too?
No, we have a little bit of a break when it comes to practices and our programming because our regular season is over. Playoffs are done. Now we're in that in-between phase before spring. But the hockey academy that I still work for, we're on the ice because they'll go until May, just like a normal school year. So still grinding away on that.
So on the academy ice, how many hours are you on the ice a day?
Just for that, it's 1 hour just for that academy. So they do their off ice first, then they do their on ice, then they go back to the schooling portion of it.
Yeah, I think I told you when I owned the academy in Rochester, we'd go on the ice for an hour a day, sometimes an hour and 15. And when we first got in the business, the first year we were gung ho. We were out there 5 days a week, and then all of a sudden, probably 3/4 of the way through, kids are sick in the morning and they're, ouch, my legs hurt, and it's like we had no idea what we were doing as far as periodization and trying to do it the right way. And as somebody who was in her 40s at the time, it just killed my body because I was on the ice with the academy, then I was teaching 2 hours of private lessons every day, then I was going on the ice with 2 or 3 teams every day, and by the time the day was over, I couldn't move. My legs were done. So I don't envy you on what you do. I'm very happy, and it makes me extremely proud to know somebody that's still fighting the fight like you're doing. That's good, but not me.
Well, so I'm starting that process of my body falling apart. So I'm at the early stages of my 40s, so I'm not too far behind where you're at.
Look what you're going to look like in a few years. This is it, man.
I noticed that you have my name tag today, so I know you always wanted to be me. I'm just excited that you're finally jumping right into it.
Yeah, I don't know how to fix that. not while we're live, so I'm going to let it go. So anyway, we're going to, like I said, we've got Ed Polumbo. Folks, I have to apologize on everything I published today. I spelled Ed's name wrong, and immediately I got a text from him tonight, and he was very gracious, but he said Polumbo was spelled with an A. Now, I could say right off the bat, who spells Polumbo with an A? But I'm not going there because I'm trying to build a new friendship there. I don't think he's ready for that humor. Maybe he is, but so we'll fix Ed's name on all the things I put it on earlier today as I got ready to publish this and broadcast this. So anyway, hey, look at this. You're gonna like this, Mike.
Nice. Our buddy Frank. It's always good to hear from Frank.
He sure is. Now he's already stirring it up. Hasn't been on a while.
He's
Frank,
a good guy.
Frank,
He knows who the real one is.
Yeah, you know who the real one is. Real what? We don't know, but okay. So anyway, Lakeland, Florida's checking in too. We got people popping in now. It's nice to see. Home of the Tigers. You know, I was just down in Florida last week, and I got a chance to go I was down in Naples, so I went up to Fort Lauderdale and caught the Boston game and got to go to the Boston Fenway Park South, I think they call it Fenway South. And as a Tigers fan, you know, it's one thing to go down and see a game, but you know, it's still cool to go down and see a Boston game and experience it down there. And it was, you know, it was eerie. It was eerie, Mike. I got to tell you, it was eerie because the average age was probably 73. I felt like a spring chicken down there. I felt like I should be out running the base pass myself. That's how old the crowd was. So,
well, you're a young 72. You know?
Yeah. Okay. Just keep coming tonight. I'll let you come as much as you want. So, but I had a good time. All right, let's see what we got. Oh, look, tonight's alumni night from our first year. Good to see John on, and it's been a while from the Sonnedecker family, and very cool. Good to see you, John. Awesome. So anyway, let's get talking a little bit. We're going to get a little bit later. Like I said, we're going to jump on and do some video that we normally don't do, but we had to do a pre-recorded interview to get this done, but I'm going to let that wait a little bit. And so Mike, you and I talked earlier today, and we talked about all the different topics that are coming through on the Facebook discussion group. And one of the things on the Facebook discussion group that has probably been, which is, we have to forget there's thousands of people that are coming on, or 1,000+ people coming on each month that are new, and how that means that we've got to keep the, we just can't go on to new and fresh topics. A lot of times we have to regenerate old topics to make sure people are up to speed, and we're not leaving. We need to appreciate the people that have been around forever, but we also have to appreciate the new people and make sure we give them information. And one of the pieces of content they're looking for is dealing with the hiring of an advisor. And I forget, because we talk about it ad nauseum. We're on this topic all the time, but I guess we're really not. I went back and I looked at a lot of our videos just over the last few months, and we don't really get on the topic as much as we should. So I think maybe what we should do is just talk about advisors and kind of go back to basics here for the first few minutes.
Yeah, and I think to your point, we constantly are dealing with answering that question. So to us, it's like, oh my God, we got to do it again. But it's like anything else. Somebody first discovers our message board or the discussion, and they join because they have a question about this and they want an answer. So it does kind of, we have to temper our frustration sometimes of answering it over and over and over and over again, because there's a lot of people that need that answer, and we haven't provided it. So, I think when it comes to just talking about whether or not you need an advisor, because that's always the biggest question. I think a lot of families, they start feeling the pressure because either, different families that are on their team that they play on have advisors, and they figure like, oh my God, I don't have one. Do I need one? Like, what do they do? How much do they cost? There's all that goes on. And then there's other people who think like, don't ever get an advisor because they were wronged in some way by whoever it is that they hired. And they're just so jaded by it that you'll never get a good experience, or like you'll never get good feedback from that family about the experience that they had or the experience of having an advisor. So everything kind of lays somewhere in the middle as far as, are advisors good? Yes. Should everybody get an advisor? No. It all depends on how old you are, what ability level you are, what you're trying to gain from it, that you have to kind of work through those answers first before you know what direction to actually take it.
I fully agree. I think what you hit is perfectly legitimate on the topic. I think that a lot of people forget that, well, first of all, let me address the part you said about the naysayers. There's always going to be somebody chopping at your tree. There's always going to be somebody. There's going to be somebody that's just going to try to. I call them dream killers. In a lot of the things we put up online, my written or my presentations that go up. In fact, I do a whole video on a webinar on dream killers. And dream killers are anybody that gets in your way and tries to naysay what you're doing. And a lot of people will dream kill you on hiring an advisor. Maybe it's because, there's lots of reasons. Maybe it's because their kid's not the same level and they know that they really would, not need an advisor. Maybe they don't want to pay the money for it or can't afford an advisor. There's a lot of reason why people are dream killers, but they exist. They're out there. And you got to kind of sway past that. But as far as an advisor themselves, we put a lot of literature and a lot of video and a lot of time into explaining the advisor process. We've got videos on YouTube on the advisor. If you go to juniorhockeyadvisor.com, I believe there's a free, if it's not free, DM me, email me. We've got some free information up there that can help you with the process too. You're right, Mike. Not everybody needs an advisor. Not even really good players. I mean, I know several people that are at the elite level. I'm talking about. I've known players that are in the national development program that didn't use advisors. Right. Not until they needed an agent is when they finally came around. Then there's people that are on the lower end that don't use advisors because they do things like this. They collect information, they get it from as many sources as they can, and they go out and they do the elbow work that they grind as much as they can. The elbow work. I don't even know what I'm trying to say there. It's putting some elbow grease into it is what I was trying to say. Mixed metaphors all over the place. But that is one of the things that are key is, an advisor sometimes means, I need to have somebody help me with this on the workload. An advisor sometimes means I need to open doors that I can't open myself. So you really have to have a plan on how much work you can put into this. And, do you need assistance opening doors? Some people would say everybody needs assistance opening doors, but that's not necessarily true. If you have a coach, if you have a private instructor, somebody giving you lessons, if you've got prior coaches, if you got a spring league team, you got all these other people that may have connections that you can latch onto and they can open doors for you. A lot of times it's just asking, but that goes back to the question of how much do you want to work on this? How much effort do you want to put into this? So that's the way I'm seeing it right now. Mike, what do you have to add to that?
Well, I just think everybody needs to have realistic expectations also of what they're going to try to get from that advisor, because, some people, we always get a lot of feedback from people that get frustrated where maybe they're kind of going to a bunch of different null camps and, they're jaded by the null camps because they're not latching on to any of those teams, or they're not really getting, good traction from those different events. That's not because the events are poor necessarily. It's not because, they don't have an advisor working on their behalf to like get them in the door, or, to talk to the teams about them. If you are at those events and you don't have necessarily the talent to make that level, you're not really going to get a lot of interaction, whether you have an advisor or not. It's just, there's a standard of ability that needs to be there in order to be there. So the next step would be, are you willing to look at the other options, whether it's NCDC or it's USPHL Premier or it's, NA3 or it's the different Canadian leagues. If you get to that point and you're like, well, holy cow, when I'm trying to navigate this tier 3, and I'm looking at Canadian leagues and I'm looking at US leagues and everything, you might need an advisor to help that process from that point. But if you're looking at, I need an advisor so I can get into the North American League, but you're not at that ability, there's nothing they can do anyway. And then you're going to be upset with your advisor if you had one who couldn't land you a spot on that team. And it has nothing to do with your advisor. It's you have the wrong set of expectations and ability level for where you want to go.
Yeah, and that's in what your point with the other leagues. If you're not quite at the null level yet, or BCHL null, USHL, if you're not quite at that level, and you're going to play tier 3 junior hockey, and what league you want, if you're a player that's just a little bit below the NAHL level, you might not need an advisor for that either, because,
Right.
reaching out to tier 3 teams, they usually reach back fairly quickly. I know very few teams that say, hey, nope, we're good. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at tier 3 very often. Usually you'll hear that at higher level junior teams, where they actually have a process to fill their teams much earlier in the year. And they're usually done July, August, on kind of formatting that final 25, 26, 27 kids, and then they'll trim down a little bit from that. So let's see what John has to say on this. John says, good advisor with connections help you find your kid needing to move teams during the season for whatever reason, especially ones that understand where the players will fit and grow the most. That is such a great statement. And John, you're spot on with that. Mike, you got anything to say on that one?
I mean, I think that was one angle that we hadn't touched on, but he said it perfectly. Like, when you're within the current year, and maybe you're unhappy, or you're not in the best situation from a playing standpoint, your advisor can work on your behalf to try to find a better spot for you, and that can come in very handy.
Well, this is what came in next, so I'm assuming that they're 100% in agreement with everything I said, but most likely it's for John Sonnedecker's comment that was just made. The the other side of this is John hit on it, but on a different perspective on the advisor. John's point was, hey, midseason move, but you can almost categorize that as a specialist. In other words, somebody that knows what to do with a player at your level. Advisors for the most part have their own niche. They have their own area, their niche, their own area that they fit into, their specialty, their special sauce. Some of them are guys that just really know the prep market and really can help you get into prep. And then from prep, because they know where prep players go, they're really good at processing players from prep out. Some know the Minnesota market and know Minnesota high school players really well and know how to work with them. Some really, and this is the majority, the vast majority of advisors know tier 3 hockey. That's because most advisors, if you look at their bios, don't have high-level hockey bios. Some do. There's a percentage that do, that are D1, ex-pro. They're players that have played at that level. But the majority did not play at that level. And the majority know what their wheelhouse. So, if you're looking to play tier 3, I really would suggest finding a guy that's an expert in tier 3 hockey and staying with that guy that's in that wheelhouse. A lot of guys that will take your money only know tier 1 and they only know division 1, and they'll take you on as a client and they'll say, oh yeah, I sent out your information to you to 8 different tier 1 18 teams, or I sent your information out to all the null teams. Well, it may or may not help, because you may not be ready for that. You're a tier 3 level player. Finding an advisor that really knows the wheelhouse. So I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, and I think you have to you kind of have to push them to work on your behalf as well, because in some cases, if you're quiet, and you don't really reach out, they'll just throw you in with like the masses, where some of these people have hundreds of people that they represent. So, they'll try to get all 35 or, all 50 kids into a null camp, or, they just kind of lump everybody together with their connections to try to get their clientele opportunities. Whereas if you have one, advisor that might only carry 10 to 15 people, for the most part, they're like working for you specifically on trying to get you to different places. So when you're kind of reviewing, which advisors you'd want to go with, that's an important question to ask, is just how many clients do you have? Do you want to be with like somebody that's got a huge Rolodex of people that they're working with and probably contacts, but you're probably going to get pushed in with the masses, or somebody that is only limiting themselves to 5, 10, 15, 20 kids that they represent every year, because you get a different experience with it.
You sure do. And so, that's one of the major grinds I have on the business is, here's the guy I don't like in the business. Hey Mike, great talking to you. I'm glad you want to come on board as a client. Hey, guess what? I know 3 Division I schools. I'm going to reach out to you right now. I'm going to call Shreveport, Lone Star, and I'm going to call Jamestown tonight, and I'm gonna start talking to them about you. And what they forget is they haven't even seen you skate yet. They haven't even
Right.
seen you, and there are people complaining about that guy all the time to me that has all the answers, knows exactly what kind of school you want to, but he's 10 minutes into the conversation with you. And if you get a guy like that on the phone as an advisor or a prospective, because I hope everybody out there, I hope you're spending time actually talking to more than one advisor. If an advisor reaches out to you, that's great, but it doesn't mean they're the only advisor in the book. And it doesn't mean you have to go with that first choice. You really need to do your homework and ask questions. Price is not the most important thing in my book. Of course, you don't want to go out and spend the bank, but that should be part of the accountability of that person you're hiring. But what kind of contract do they throw in front of you? What kind of accountability are they going to have with you? What are they promising you they're going to do, and what are they not promising you? So those are all extremely, extremely important questions. And asking for references is not out of the norm. Asking to talk to, hey, I literally recommend when people do the 1 hour consulting with me, when they talk to me, I tell them, look, don't be afraid to say, hey, can you pull up on your phone the most recent Division I college coach you talked to? You'll really find out a lot about the guy right there. Because if he flips around and goes, which one of the 14 I talked to today do you want to see? Not that you want to get the phone numbers. You just want proof that he's actually doing something, towards it. Oh, I haven't talked to any this week, but last week I talked to 20. That's the guy you want. That guy that's actually got an active roster of people he's talking to. Hey, do you have 4 or 5 of your customers I can talk to? What do you think your worst experience with one of your customers in the last 3 or 4 years, what would they say about you? It's like you're almost interviewing for a job. Well, you are. You're hiring somebody. You are now the HR person in your hockey world. You're the HR director hiring somebody new to your hockey community. So it's extremely important to slow down and take some time on that. Mike, start talking because I got to catch up here, getting ready for. Hey, if you're just before Mike comes back on board, if you're just tuning in and you want the elite prospects, Ed Polumbo with an A. Okay, he's coming up. We're going to go to that in a little bit. We are not killing time. We're just making sure that we get some of the other stuff off the board. So don't think we're tap dancing in our typical way. We actually have this ready to go. So we'll get to Ed in a little bit. But Mike, finish off that thought process.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to advisors, like you said, you got to interview them. But then once you finally hire them, you have to make sure that they're working on your behalf. And that's the big thing, because if you just sit back and think that they are, unless they're reaching back out to you with all the different things that they're working at, you got to kind of give them some parameters to work with. If let's say you're trying to get exposure for the USHL, and that's kind of your ability, and again, you're at the right expectation. You know that that's kind of where you're at from an ability standpoint. You're realistic. Talking about different programs, and maybe you've had some connections with them just on your own. We'll have your advisor reach out to them and still see, like, where are you in their process? Where are you as a prospect for them? If they've moved on to other players, you need to know that information, and your advisor couldn't get that, right?
Yeah,
So
especially in that league, because what we talk, we're heavily laden in this discussion around the NAHL. And why? Well, because of the tier 1 and tier 2 levels, there's 32 teams there. So we spend a lot of time. We're a little bit biased, not so much towards our team, but because we spend a lot of time in the null world, since Mike and I both work in the null world. But it's a whole different animal on how you get into the USHL. You can't call up and say, hey, coach, what do you think? Can I come out for a tryout? Yeah, that might happen. They might get you into the main camp, but really they're drafting, and they all work on a one tender, and everything else is a drafted player, where the null works on, up to a dozen tenders. And then the draft comes in, and then also free agents come in a lot more into the mix. The USHL has a very little window for that free agent player. And that's where your advisor has to come in. He might know a team that is already, had their draft happen. Nothing came to fruition like they thought. And so they're actually looking for some free agents or looking for some players, and maybe there's a way to get on the ice and skate there. But that's that. An advisor needs to know the USHL. If they don't understand it, they don't have connections with all those teams. You can hire all the advisors you want. If they don't have 3/4 of the GMs and coaches on their phone ready to be dialed, you're not getting anything out of that process. That's just not going to help you whatsoever.
Yeah. And just to finish my point of where I was going with that
Oh, I didn't know you were still talking. Sorry.
Well, I was trying to get somewhere, but typical Jeff Colson jumps right in there. But
maybe it's because you circled the freaking field 3 times before you tried to land.
Okay.
That's a
I don't think
reference.
that's the case, but I'll let you think it. But yeah, going back to it is if you had some interest from USHL teams and in your mind you think like this is a legitimate chance, but your advisor finds out that they've kind of soured or there's more players above that list. Now's time to also start focusing in on maybe the NA or the BC League or other leagues. So if you aren't drafted, or maybe you're drafted but really late, it's not a total shock, and you've already started the process of, if this doesn't happen, I'm going to consider these other options. Right. Those that go into it thinking like, I've talked to these USHL teams, I know I'm going to get drafted, they really like me, and nothing happens. And then you're like, well, now what? I didn't get drafted, and it's the off season. Now I'm trying to figure out, okay, what do I do now? So having an advisor that's kind of doing that legwork for you is very helpful, but it also helps level set, where you're at. If you're in the USHL conversation and it looks good, that's awesome. If you're not sure and your advisor's not getting a good vibe from it, he's going to help you kind of work through plan B, plan C, so on and so forth. And that is when it comes, really handy to have these guys.
So we're going to take one other question off the board from Hockey. Well, first of all, I want to get back to this comment that I just posted a second ago. It says, our advisor always told us he'll open the doors, but it's always up to my son to perform at those tryouts. Spot on. An advisor is not a guarantee you're going to play D1. An advisor is not a guarantee you're going to play in a top-level junior program. An advisor's there to open the doors that you can't get to and to kind of guide you in the right direction. So, and advisors wear different hats. Some, it's a very nurturing role. Some, it's a very matter of fact, hey, you're not going to play there, but here's the opportunities over here, here, and here. It really depends on what you look like. Some advisors, some of the better advisors I know, it's a full service process. They're saying, hey, when the season's over, I want you to work with somebody on academics. I've got a name for you, or you can get your own, but you need to get your grade point up. They're talking about nutrition. They're talking about off ice performance and performance training. They're talking about mindset. They're either hey, I think you're pretty good on this as far as where your mindset into this game, but maybe your mental acuity isn't quite where they think you should be at, and they know you well enough that they're recommending somebody that can help you there. Some of these advisors have all these people under one roof. They all work for the advisory firm. So it all depends, and that's why you ask questions on these things, because if you just straight want a door open, you might be able to get a guy that's working all by himself, and he's just he's got a shack, a shingle outside the shack, and it's just that's him. Like the old lawyers that work on their own and have a little office down on Main Street somewhere, or you can get to these firms that have all encompassing services, and that's important. So. But showing up for the tryouts and showing up, of course, that performance is always on you. All right, so let's get to one more, and then Amy, I'll answer a question first. This one's easy. We don't know. What's the average cost for an advisor? I don't know if there's an average anymore, because it's I know people that are paying monthly now. I know people that pay annually. Those two options weren't out there before. You had a flat fee. And it used to be $1,500 to $3,000 was the flat fee per year. That started creeping up and started moving up into some really outrageous numbers now. But there's a lot of people that are working monthly and annually. I like the monthly and annual for most people, because that allows you to say, nah, this isn't working out, and have an out. You have a way to get out of the contract. And if I'm an advisor and I'm getting paid monthly or even annually, I've got to perform, or I won't get you for the next month or the next year. So any thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, if I was stuck to a number, I would say 3,500 to $5,000 is what it seems like it's been from what I've heard lately.
Yeah, and that's if you're doing a just a one-stop indefinite contract.
Yeah, like a flat fee.
Yeah. So I would agree with that. I've heard of people, paying monthly now, 100,
Yeah.
$150 a month. I've heard of people paying annually now, and that number is usually running 1,000 and up, if you're doing it that way. But there's different ways of doing it. I think that's great that there's more options on that. So, but honestly, it varies so much. And Amy, it is definitely a market that fluctuates, and it depends on how desperate the advisor is for business too. But if the advisor drops his price by half, that might also tell you something too. If you ask for a deal and he's willing to go that far down, consider that too. It's not saying he's bad, but it's most likely it's because he's bad. Last question, then we'll get on to our elite prospects discussion. What are your thoughts on playing second year of AAA 18s or going juniors? Loves his team, and the coach should be here's the more. The team should be a top 40 tier 1 AAA team next year. Mike, jump on that one.
Well, I think it depends on what level of junior it would be. If it's like the USHL, the NA, or the BC, something like that, that's a consideration of getting to junior hockey sooner because it gives you more time to climb that ladder. If we're talking about tier 3 or tier 2.5, maybe that extra year of AAA is going to help you continue to develop, show well. Again, if it's a top 40 team, you got a chance to go to nationals and things like that. That may be an easier way for you to get into the NA or to, a higher level junior. So my answer would be is what is the level of junior that you're looking to do? If it's tier 3, I would maximize your time at U18 AAA before jumping over to play tier 3 juniors.
Not a bad answer. Not a bad answer. I don't have much to add to that. I'm a big proponent of playing out your 18s unless you have an excellent opportunity where all those check boxes that Mike just talked about are clicked. You play for a good top 40 18 team. It's going to put you at the right showcases. It's going to put you in a good spot. And how I see the world. If you've been around our discussion group, you've been around our videos. I firmly believe you need to be in the best league, on the best team in the best league that you possibly can play at, and then be one of the better players on one of the best teams you can play at in the best league. That's how you get seen. And you don't get seen if you're on the last place team for the most part. So there's always the anomaly, but this is a democratic society. We always play to the masses. And if you're trying to move up the ladder, go with the statistics. That's the way I see the world. So
the other point there too that I forgot to mention is what year in high school is he? Is he already graduating and then he's in like that gap year and he's going back to play U18 AAA? Then maybe jumping to juniors is the better option. If he's still in high school, and again, we're not talking about tier 1 or tier 2 juniors, I would say 100% return and play midget hockey at the AAA level.
I disagree. Put the kid to work. All right. He can work 8 a.m. till 5 and then go play U18s if he's in that gap year. Make him earn some money. Have him start paying you back for all those years that you went without Christmas gifts, all those years you went without an Easter egg for yourself. Okay. Not getting a birthday present for your wife so you could pay for hockey. Make the kid work for that year. That's what I say.
That was only you not getting your wife a birthday present. Everybody else was smarter than that.
Oh, 2 kids in travel hockey. I can't, there was a family when I was growing up, the Cordy family. And this no joke, Joe Biden. This is one of those families 2 blocks away from us. Actually, this is from my grandparents' house because I spent just as much time at my grandparents' house that I did with my house. The Cordy family, 18 kids, I think it was. The number was crazy. You go over to the house, I'd go over there and eat, and they would never even. They fed more kids that weren't their kids because they ate in shifts, and about 9 of them played travel hockey. And I'm thinking, how in the world do you have that many kids? You got to pay. Can you imagine having to pay for half? Let's say you go out to play hockey and you have to pay for half your travel team. That's the equivalent. It amazes me that family was able to pull off the things that the Cordy family, just bless them, good Catholic family. And, so, all right, let's get on.
Sharing.
Hey, you're always welcome. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring Ed Polumbo on. We're going to do the, my interview with him from just a few minutes ago, wrapped up. And what I did was I put it together. It's going to talk about elite prospects. And then the second half is going to talk about, it's not that long. It's a few minutes long, just 10 minutes or so. And the second half is going to talk about their showcase that's coming up in April, I believe. And we'll put the link to this in every one of the sites that we have these broadcasts, this live stream. So don't worry about it. I will put this out and publish it for you. And hey, we should have some fun with this. So we will be able, Mike and I will both be on and be able to actually comment while the interview is going. We'll be on the comments and we'll be able to respond to you on the comments. So let's get on with it and enjoy this show. Let's see how good I do at this.
I don't have high hopes.
Yeah. Ed, how you doing? Good to see you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Ed, tell me a little bit about your past.
Yeah, so my career is a little bit different than most would think. I never played at a high level. I always knew I just wanted to work in sports. I went to Temple University in Philadelphia for sports management. I took a certification course in scouting with sports management worldwide, run by the current Peterborough Pete's GM, and I believe recently promoted to president, Mike Oak. Who is still leading the sports management worldwide class and certification course. And I was able to use that time to network and learn more about scouting. And once I got my certification, I was hired pretty quickly to work for some teams in the NA3HL. The team that I worked for the longest amount of time as a scout was the Sugar Land Imperials down in Houston, Texas, but they were associated with the Corpus Christi Ice Rays. I think in the 2.5 or 3 years I was with Sugar Land / Corpus Christi, about 28 to 30 kids were sent down to their camps, and about 11 or 12 over that time made one of the two teams. I left the scouting for a little while. The video analysis company Instat was actually hiring in Philadelphia, opening their first office here. And I took a job and I reconnected with a lot of the people, a lot of the scouts and some of the GMs and coaches that I had met a few years earlier when I was scouting. And it led to me leading the charge in North America, along with a couple of other guys on our staff who really built Instat up from having, like, I think 11 NCAA clients in North America and maybe 10 or so NHL clients to having basically every important team and organization in North America. It was a fun time. And then Elite Prospects came calling and said they were opening up a sales department and wanted to get into live events. So I decided to make the jump over.
For those that don't know, Instat did take over the market for a good run. It became the de facto tool, and it became a game changer. What Instat was doing at the time was revolutionary. But we're here to talk EP. What are your thoughts, and what do you use to try to help people align to get to where they want to go? Or is that even EP's even part of what EP looks at it themselves as being able to do?
Well, so the premium subscription is important for us as a company, but also for parents and players. I think a lot of people, what Elite Prospects a few years ago, people used to see it as a fan site and just a site to look up players in the NHL, maybe some junior leagues. But now, ever since we started adding youth hockey players to the database, we started to realize there's a market here for servicing those age groups, the 13, 14, 15-year-old kids looking to get to the next level. And we launched a few years ago a feature, sort of a premium service called EP Verified. So you would get premium And then if you verify yourself and are able to prove that you're the person who is, basically you can claim your profile. And by claiming your profile, you can do stuff such as add your contact information, your social media accounts, add further images to your account. You can add video highlights, fitness testing results,
So
education information.
And before we go down that road completely, let's go back to just the premium and maybe explain the difference between the regular free version and what premium.
We think as a recruiting piece, getting the kids to verify themselves at any age under 18 is important, because some of the 17, 18-year-olds might be looking at, club colleges. They might be looking at opportunities elsewhere, maybe even lower level junior leagues, and they may need their online profile to help them out with that. Elite Prospects, our recent motto is we want to be the gateway to hockey, and by launching a product like Verified a few years ago and building it out to what we're attempting to build it out to be, should back up that motto as the gateway to hockey. We want players to use EP every day if possible. We do rely on a wide variety of volunteers from all over the world to collect score sheets, to just provide data from different websites. We want to make sure that the stats we have are correct. And sometimes if they aren't correct, it's not really, I won't say it's not our fault, but sometimes it's because another source was incorrect. People try to send us videos of assists that should have been credited, and we have to respond and say, hey, you have to have your coach email us, or you have to have the correction made.
Got a great humor, because you guys have posted on your social media some of these loons over the years. And, when I say that, I mean, some parents go to some drastic measures. There was a piece that you guys posted about somebody actually built a website and or a face of a website so they could send you, what it looked like an official page that had these stats on there, that it was all made up. It was not real. And I thought that was fantastic, because, you actually pull it out and show people what, craziness happens. And that's exactly why you have to be very careful with these stats.
Well, you gotta appreciate the passion that some people have for the game. The online profile helps. Being able to enhance your profile and even add stuff like video highlights from YouTube or any other source, that would be something that is valued and something that scouts will actually take a look at. There are other ways to promote yourself too, and if the world is going towards the online community and the importance of an online database or presence of some sort, then one example I have is a recent example. A verified player who played in our EP Cup Series events 2 years ago as an 18U goalie, verified his profile. I think he only had 2 or 3 video highlights up there, a goalie. And an AJHL team reached out to him and invited him to a camp of theirs with 8 other goalies, and he was basically competing for one of their 2 spots on the roster. And he was surprised himself. So was his mom, and he made it up there and made the team. So so the 2024 Elite Prospects Pre-Draft Invitational is scheduled for April 11th through 14th at Michigan State University. I do see all the Michigan stuff in your background there. So the event basically, for the past 3 years, this is our 3rd year doing it. We've put together first-year draft-eligible 15-year-olds. So this year it's the 08 group. We want to showcase them, give them one last chance to play on a live stream in front of scouts. We had fitness testing. We still have fitness testing. We have a skills competition. We have visual assessment by Visual Edge, a company called Visual Edge, a vision training assessment, and athletics, a company based in the Czech Republic who is opening offices in North America very soon, does our fitness testing. And this year, the skills competition for the first time will be sponsored and run by a company called Bolt Sports. We currently have 13 NCAA D1 commitments out of the 42 players who participated in it. There were 17 USHL USHL draft picks, and I believe a few more were selected in the Phase 2 draft last year. So I think we're up to 20 or 21 total USHL draft picks. A few playing in the USHL, I believe 6 or 7 CHL picks, and I believe one player is currently playing in the CHL as well. So we're happy with the quality of the players that we get. This year, we expanded it to 80 players. So instead of a 2-team, 3-game showcase, we are now doing a 4-team round robin, where each team plays 3 games. You get an Elite Prospects jersey, you get socks, you get that fitness testing that I mentioned, visual skills testing, and there'll be some guest speakers, at least 1 or 2 guest speakers as well, coming to our event. So it's a fun event. We had a lot of fun. We've heard nothing but great feedback about it from everyone who's attended. Unless they're lying to me during the surveys afterwards, no one's had a bad thing to say about the event. So it's a great event. We have a lot of fun with it, and we have coaches coming who have experience coaching AAA, coaching 15-0, 16U level. Last year we had Rob Schremp, Carlos Zernis, some guys who've Spiros Anastas, guys who have international coaching experience. This year is the first year we're opening it up to a Canadian team as well. We will have a Prospects Canada team as well. So
that's incredible.
It'll be fun. Yeah. So anyone can apply right now. We've received over 250 applications for 80 spots. A lot of goalies, a lot of goalies have applied, but the 80 spots, like I said, we'll have 1 Canadian team, 3 US based teams. The goal is to bring in players who are likely to get drafted or really feel like they're playing at a high enough level where if they haven't been spoken to by teams at the USHL, the OHL, QMJHL, if they haven't been spoken to by those teams, they feel like they should. And this might be their last chance to get a look. So we're looking for elite 2008 born players, and our coaches, actually, we have weekly meetings and we review the applicants, but the process is easy. You click on the link that you guys are going to post, and you apply. Within a couple of days, our coaches should be able to review that application, and we're still making decisions. I think right now, out of the 80 players, we've only sent acceptance letters to about 45, 50 of them. So still waiting on some responses back. But we want to make sure that the right players are at this. We don't want anybody feeling out of place. We don't want kids to leave the event saying they didn't have a good time or that it wasn't right for them. We want to make sure that it's a high quality event with players who want to get to the next level and have that drive and intensity and passion for the game.
Ed, I want to thank you so much for coming on. This has been a whirlwind of information.
Well, thank you for having me, and looking forward to more conversations just like this.
Good evening, everybody. Jeff Colson, Junior Hockey Advisor. Until the end, it was going good.
Too many Jeffs.
Until the end, it was going good. Then I started it over again by mistake. So, hey, what do you think? Any good information?
I loved it. I think, honestly, I probably go on to Elite Prospects no less than 50 or more times a day. So having the things that we do, not only for scouting and, for me coaching and everything else, I'm on it all the time. When we have our consulting calls with families and things like that, a lot of what I do is showing people how to gather that information themselves. So maybe they don't have to hire an advisor or different things like that. So I use it all the time. So for anyone that's listening that hasn't really adopted that as part of their practice of like looking at it and even knowing how to look at it, spend some time, because it is such a useful tool that, like I said, I was on it while we've been on this podcast, because there's different things that happen that I'm looking at and whatnot. So what a great tool, because like he said in there, I think when it first came out, it was kind of like Hockey DB, which a lot of people are familiar with, especially when it comes to NHL and stuff like that. And it like completely changed from being a site where you just kind of looked at your favorite players in the NHL to like a tool to help you navigate your path now.
I think Ed was fantastic. He's monitoring right now. He just popped on. I saw the comment come across. I appreciate that. Ed will tell you that we were on the video doing the interview for a lot longer, by like 8 times longer than what that I trimmed it down to. It took a long time to trim all the good stuff out. But just to give you a context on this, you know, they are looking for 80 players, and their track record is extremely high. I mean, you talk about the numbers that they put to the next level out of that showcase, or the amount of good players they bring into the showcase. Just depends on perspective there. You know, they're getting a lot of great people there, and you know, he mentioned Robbie Shrimp. Robbie Shrimp is a Western New York man now, over in China, working as a coach over there, or a skills development player, or coach, I should say. Maybe top 5 hands in the world at his prime. Just unbelievable. He was doing the Michigan goal before anybody knew what the Michigan goal was. He was, you know, at that level very early on. And then he talked about Anastas, that used to be the Division I head coach at Michigan State. Once again, you know, he's over coaching the Chinese national program, I think, now, but he was an AHL coach, big in hockey in the Michigan market, and of course, you know, the head coach at Michigan State. Before that, he was actually when University of Michigan Dearborn had a Division I team, he was the head coach there too. So probably one of the few people in the world that can say they coached at if I don't even know if there's anybody that's ever coached at Michigan and Michigan State in their lifetime. I've never heard of it before, you know, coaching those two names, those two brands. So, and just, I told this to Ed earlier today. My claim to fame is I went up against Anastas twice, beat him both times. Just, I'm not saying anything but that. It's not trying to brag, just the way it is.
That's great.
That's great. Let's see. And I know I just jumped back on and said, Shrimpy was running part of our skills competition. The kids were completely in awe about his hands and his overall skill, even retired. Yeah. The guy's unreal. The things he could do with a puck. And hey, you know, to be honest with you, there's YouTube videos out there. You can go out and watch some of the things that Robbie was doing. Especially, I believe it was the AHL skills competition. May have been the NHL skills, but I think it was the AHL skills competition from a few years back. And he's on there doing some crazy stuff. So
he's like a shootout specialist. He's unbelievable.
Teams should have specialists. I was just in a conversation about this the other day. They have to start developing more specialists. You know, and I know we got the tough guy and we got the score. I'm talking about
guys not really anymore.
You know, I'm talking about the guy that's brought on the team, like the punter or the backup, you know, kicker. You know, guys that are just sit on the bench and they go, okay, shoot out. Okay, that's my job. I go out there and do that. And then it just sits the rest of the game. I think we need more players like that, because every other sport has that guy that makes millions of dollars a year, and he's a backup catcher for the Tigers. Doesn't play in any games, just sit out in the bullpen, eating hot dogs, but making millions. We need that in hockey. You got the backup goalie, but they still got to work. They got to go out there for still a third of the year. You know, we need that guy. Expand the rosters, start putting the specialty guys on there. Maybe they don't even have to dress until overtime. They just go out and, you know, sit in the stands and come in at the end to save the day. You know,
are you trying to create a market for all the TikTok stars to actually make the NHL?
Hey, you know, there's crazier things. Look at, I'm watching that show with the Formula One drivers. It's like they've got guys in Formula One now that learned their craft. They only raced online, and they became
a simulator.
Yeah. Well, they're gamers. They actually, you know, have their whole setup kind of like we have in our houses with for doing live streams, but they game on these tracks, and then you got to watch it. It's on Netflix. I can't remember the name of the show, but it just talks about these athletes.
Like Drive to Success or something like that.
Yeah, it's about the Formula One guys. And it was some of the better drivers that actually have rides, you know, in Formula One, which there's only 20 guys in the world that drive Formula One, making huge money. And, you know, they started out the year before, or the year before that, they're online, never been in a car, never stepped into a Formula One car, never raced on a real track. That's crazy.
That is really crazy.
In our sport. We need the guys that, you know, find a way to add to the roster without ever playing hockey. We got to find some way to get those kind of people in our sport. Maybe they're good bench guys. just rah guys. There's got
You
to
want
be
cheerleaders?
I don't know. I'm trying to cover you, man, because every time you talk, we lose 10% of our audience.
I like when you were talking about your conversation with Ed and you said it went 8 times longer. I know why it went 8 times longer.
So it's funny you say that. I deleted all of my talking out of the interview.
Exactly. That's why it was so short and concise.
Shut up. Nobody asked you. Okay, what do you think, folks? Did you gain anything from that? Did bring in Ed on? I sure would. I mean, it kind of went quiet. I know we got a nice audience still there, but we lost some comments coming up here. Let's see here. Premium account for both my son and easy to use for both my sons. That's good to hear. So anyway, if you got some comments or questions, throw them up. We'll get them answered. And if it's not, you don't want to hear us talk, we'll try to get Ed to comment, or we'll bring on somebody else that from Elite Prospects to answer the question. Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? Mike, you could talk too, Frank says he loved it. Thank you, Frank. I'm looking at the size of the audience. I'm going, did everybody forget how to type? Did everybody fall asleep? I don't know. I thought it was entertaining.
Well, definitely.
And I'm not talking about the interview. I'm talking about since the interview.
Your drive for success, Formula One talk.
Come on, now you can't always be in the hockey world. You gotta be well rounded. You know that.
That is true. That is true. Are you watching? What's the one that follows around all the PGA or live
Full
golfers?
swing.
That's
Full
pretty
swing.
good too.
Spot on, man. Love it.
Yeah,
Love
it's
it.
good.
Anytime you can see what's going on in an athlete's head, and that's the thing that just is so cool about this season of Full Swing is they're really delving into the mental side of all these guys.
Right.
They're talking about the guy that can't even freaking hit the ball straight. And then when I talk about that, it's with his putter. It's the guy that took his shirt off in the waste management tournament a couple of years ago. It was running around chugging beers. Now the guy can't. You can't make a cut anymore. Then they're talking about Spieth and they're talking about Thomas, and they just did a really good job. They went through Rory. They're going through all their mental side, and that was the cool thing about the season is just seeing how they prepare, their ups and downs. How they got ready for the Ryder Cup. I am fascinated by that show just because you get to see inside the minds of guys that are in the top 20, top 30 in the world for their craft. And to me, that's crazy to get that insight.
Still struggling. They're the best in the world and they still struggle and go through, confidence issues and all that other stuff. It's all those behind the scenes type shows with anything is really cool to see.
Great. Thanks for the information, Dave. My son talked to a couple teams, GMs, and they noted they saw his stats and videos on EP. That's awesome. And that's the kind of feedback that will keep people from EP wanting to come on the show, knowing that we have people that are actually part of the process. And hopefully those of you that are not using EP jump on board and we spike their sales and they go, holy smokes, we got to give Jeff a Mercedes for all the things he's doing to grow our company. I don't want a Mercedes. I really don't.
What do you want?
This
is your choice. Go ahead.
It's the same thing I say to my kids at Christmas. I don't need anything. I got everything I need. I get to come on with you once a week. What else can I ask for?
I get that. I do get that. It's like a therapy session for us both.
Yes, it is. All right, we're gonna call it quits for the night, but it's Ed's coming on one more time. Says it's important to make sure that your teams are getting your players' stats updated regularly. Can't say anything more than that. But remember, going to EP is not the way to get your stats done. You got to make sure you talk to your coach, your team manager, if you've got connections to your league or your organization. And maybe it takes, they're looking for a volunteer. So always be careful what you wish for, because I've been put in that spot before. I was coaching 2 teams at a time. I'm running 2 junior hockey teams at a time. And my littlest daughter, their stats, my littlest daughter, she was 12 at the time, their stats weren't getting posted. And, I worked through EP first, and EP said, no, 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 go to your coach. I said, I am one of the coaches. Didn't know anything about how to get it done. So after talking to the league, talking to EP, talking to our organization, somebody got volunteered to post the stats. And, it wasn't that hard, but I wasn't looking to add something to my game. So be careful what you ask for when you're out there seeking to get that one assist, or that your goals against down by 0.0003 because they missed 3 saves in the last game. Just be careful.
And I think I think everyone can see from the parent side or the player side, when your stats are either not updated or aren't even listed, how frustrating that can be. But
Absolutely.
from my perspective and your perspective, when we have players that we're trying to track and there's no information listed for the current year or any of that stuff, it could even be just at the beginning of the year, what team any of these players ended up making. But then as the year goes on, like how they're performing, it's so incredibly frustrating to not know where these kids are from a point standpoint and how successful they are for the year, that, it would be so helpful if, no matter what, all of the information is in there from both sides of it, from the organization side and from the player and parent side.
You see so much less of that now than you did 5-10 years ago. 5-10 years ago, you probably 30% of the players listed on the database were short of information or had no information. And, now, especially AAA, juniors, most of that information is it's not real time, but it's up to date fairly accurately. So that's kind of cool. And having a kid now playing ACHA that doesn't really give a crap about stats, it's a different world, because they just don't, they don't put any effort into it at all. So
we
anyway,
still have a local Chicago AAA program here that's like a perennial powerhouse that has no stats for the year, and their year is over. It's unbelievable.
I won't have you call them out, but
No, I mean, I don't know if it's their fault, but they also don't play in the HPHL anymore. So I'm sure from a league perspective, there's nothing to add. So it's independent, and they probably don't have anyone that is putting it in. But from our perspective, it's hard to know where all these kids are from a point standpoint.
Well, you run across some coaches or some leagues that are organizations, I say not leagues, but organizations that sometimes think that they're doing people a favor by not putting the stats up because they want scouts and teams and coaches to call them to find out about their players. Well, if you haven't put anything up, we don't know what player to call about unless we've actually went out and watched you live. And then when we go to research you and find out we don't have any information, we don't know if that kid that scored 2 goals did it once or has done it 30 times this year, So not doing yourself a favor by that. So
you see a kid you like and you're like, man, I like how this kid moves. He's got a good shot. And you look at him and you're like, he's played 25 games and he's got 3 points. It's like, oh, maybe he just had a really good game. You can't gauge that.
Well, listen, that is by no means any kind of knock on Ed and his organization, Elite Prospects. Ed just threw up there. It takes a village, yourself out there. Like I said, if you're having these problems, a lot of times the way to handle the problem is to get involved and help, because like Ed mentioned, globally, that means all the leagues worldwide that they deal with, they have people in the field that stat and monitor and update for them. And that's the only way something like this can work. You've got to have people that are willing to reach out. So if you don't get if your team isn't supplying the right information and you get involved, maybe you find out that the league that you're involved in needs somebody to what is it called when you aggregate all the information, put it all together, collate it. I don't know, something like that. That MBA didn't pay off for me much. I can tell you that. I don't have the right business nomenclature that I should have.
Oh, well, you just redeemed yourself with that little phrase you used there.
I don't know what it means, but
sounded great. Good job.
All right, we'll have Ed with the last word there. I appreciate it. Once again, Ed with an A in the last name. I'll fix that. I so much apologize for that. Folks that are still out there, thank you so much for being on. We appreciate everybody and taking some time to come on and watch us. I know it was a little unorthodox on how we went about it tonight, But Mike, thank you so much for coming on. I know you've had a long day too, and I think we got this done in just about an hour, and
Yep.
that's pretty good for us.
Perfect.
All right, good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Take care.